Declarations of interest. Item 2, declarations of interest. To receive statutory declarations of interest from members in relation to, firstly, pecuniary interest and secondly, non-pecuniary interest. Does anyone have a pecuniary interest? Councillor Bond.
On item 11B, discharge condition for Lindsell's Crossing. Technically, I have one. So what I will just do is leave the chamber. Be a lot simpler that way.
No, that's absolutely fine. Thank you. Any other declarations of interest? Councillor Brown, with your microphone, please. Microphone, please.
Sorry, no, non-pecuniary 11B.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Brown. That's fine. Item 3, Town Mayor's announcements. I haven't been to any official engagements over the last couple of weeks. However, we do have one coming up, a reminder at the end of September. So if you haven't already put your name in for my curry night, Elvis will be there. So we're going to be opening up the guest list a little bit wider soon. So please do respond to Alison if you would like to come. Item 4, public open session, to adjourn for a period of up to 15 minutes to allow members of the public to put questions or to address the council through the chairman pertaining to matters listed on this agenda. Each speaker should give their name and will be allocated 1 3-minute slot. So we don't have any members of the public in the chamber. Do we have anybody online, Karen? No, okay. That's fine, so I'll move on. Item 5, invited speaker. We don't have an invited speaker this week. Item 6, members' questions. Do any members have any questions? No members' questions. Okay. I have to say I've chaired many council meetings now and we're yet to have any members' questions. You're going very easy on me, which is very kind of you. Thank you. Item 7, minutes and recommendations of meetings. The minutes of the Town Council meeting held 26th of July. So we're going to go through these for accuracy first of all. So just to note as well, we do have the resolutions which have been documented on this agenda as well, which is simply for convenience. So I'm going to go through the minutes of our last council meeting. So I'm on page 8 of the pack. Any issues with accuracy on page 8? Page 9, page 10, page 11. Councillor Foster. Microphone, please, Frank. Sorry, microphone, Councillor Foster.
Right at the bottom of the page, tenant is not to display or permit to be displayed, should be the wording. Or permit to be displayed, not permit to display at the end, permit to be displayed.
Okay, permit to be displayed. Okay, thank you. That's noted. I also have one on page 11 and it's the same item on allotment fees. So if we look at this paragraph, which is sort of, we have the opening sentence and the first substantive paragraph, the final sentence of that. So making comment about concessions to pensioners, students, people on benefits, etc. Personally, I'm not sure that sentence is relevant, but we definitely did have a recommendation, but we certainly did have a minute that we need to change the terms and conditions to reflect the fact that we are not including concessions. So the document that we received, the terms and conditions, had lots of references to concessions. It was the view of council that we're not going to include those, therefore that wording needs to be taken out and that removal of concessions need to be reflected in the minute, and it isn't currently. So that is my change to that item. So that's on page 11. Any corrections on page 12? Page 13? Page 14? Page 15? No, so we're comfortable that this is a true and accurate record of the meeting. Okay, so we have several other minutes which are simply to be noted, but I will go through each in turn in case the chairman or deputy chairman wishes to update council on anything. So we have the minutes of the Finance and General Purposes Committee from the 26th of July. So this was the extraordinary meeting. Councillor Pullinger's not here, neither is Councillor Foster. Was anybody who was at that meeting wish to comment? No, so we'll note these. Minutes of the joint committee held on the 14th of July. I think we probably need to correct some of those resolutions. I don't think we resolved those things at joint committee, if I remember correctly, but Councillor Foster is not here. Councillor Russell, did you want to comment on any of these on the minutes?
No, simply that there will be corrections when we get to the joint committee.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Councillor Russell. 7D, minutes of the Finance and General Purposes meeting from Tuesday the 5th of July. It's just a slightly more substantive agenda than the extraordinary meeting. As I say, Councillor Pullinger is not here, Councillor Foster is not here. Does anybody who was at that meeting wish to comment? No, so we'll note these as well. And item 7E, minutes of the Public Land and Open Spaces Committee meeting held on the 7th of June. Councillor North, did you want to comment on anything in these minutes, or should we just note them?
No, I have no comment to make, just note them, yes, thank you, Chairman.
No problem. I think there will be some corrections on those as well, not least your name on it, Councillor North. Councillor Russell?
Can I just comment, please, that we don't need the resolutions noted. We need the recommendations, any recommendations to council noted in this item, not the actual resolutions which are in the minutes anyway.
Thank you, Councillor Russell. I think we can minute that, and that is duly noted, and we'll make sure that that's reflected properly in future agendas. That's a very fair point. Item 8, matters arising from the minutes of the Town Council meeting, so Tuesday the 26th of July. So I'm back again with the Town Council minutes. We're going through for matters arising. Any matters arising on page 8? Page 9? Page 10? Page 11? Councillor Russell?
The allotment documents and fees were mentioned before. I'm just a bit surprised that we've got so much detail about what officers said at the beginning of the item, because that sort of thing is confusing, because very often council makes different decisions. So I don't think we need that kind of detail in the minutes.
Thank you, Councillor Russell. I think that's right, and I think it probably goes to my point as well about some of the recommendations around concessions, etc. It's not really part of the minutes if a decision was made otherwise. Any further matters arising on page 11? Any matters arising on page 12? Page 13? Page 14? Page 15? No matters arising other than that. Thank you. Item 9, the accounts. To receive the detailed balance sheet, the summary of income expenditure by committee, the detailed income expenditure by committee, and the Lloyds Bank payment listing. So Councillor Pullinger is not here to move this, and nor is his deputy, Councillor Mark Foster. So would anybody wish to be so bold as to move the finances? Councillor Russell.
I'll move them, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Russell. Is there a seconder? Okay, so are we comfortable adopting the financial administration as set out? We shall have a show of hands if we're comfortable with that, please. Thank you. I think that is carried. Items for consideration. So we have item 10A, so proposed no waiting restrictions. So we have 3 proposed no waiting restrictions which we're being consulted on. So the first is along Shortmead Street and Sun Street, the second Fairfield Road, and the third somewhere else. The third is on, yes, Shortmead Street is one, Sun Street is another, and the third is Fairfield Road. So perhaps we could open to comments from members, and happy to take votes separately on these if required. Councillor Alban.
Yes, the one in Sun Street, if my map reading is any good, the yellow lines are around the pedestrian crossing, and there's already white zigzags there. So I wonder why we need yellow lines there, because the zigzags should have the same effect in that you cannot stop there.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Councillor Alban. Councillor Bond.
I've already asked this question of the officer, and I was told the reason they want the double yellows there, it'd be a lot easier to actually enforce and people park on them. That's the answer I got back.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Woodhead.
It's just an observation, really. I mean, I think the Chef's Fish and Chip Shop is a little bit further down, but I guess I'd be concerned about the impact on their business if there's no waiting, and people obviously need to be able to pull in front of the fish and chip shop to be able to collect the fish and chips. Otherwise, it does cause a few problems, especially out of hours when the Preen car park is closed. So I don't know how much of an impact that would have, but something to bear in mind, but other people are nodding saying it won't, but it was just something to bear in mind. But I think it's going to be okay, then I'm happy to support it, but that was my only concern.
Thank you, Councillor Woodhead. Councillor Brown?
Chef's Fish and Chip Shop has a notice in it that says you can park in Preen, and that's agreed with Preen. But just there's always cars parked in those zones at the moment. I'm not sure it has an effect. I think it does help the business, and I don't think it has any long-lasting damage. I did wonder whether people crossing, whether it's stopping people from seeing them crossing. But I don't think it is. I often use that, and I don't know if there's ever been any issues.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Knight.
Thank you. So you're right. There does seem to be some agreement between the two businesses there in relation to use of the chip shop. But I'm minded to note that the future of Preen is not that certain on that site, and we know that they're looking to move to an alternate site. And if that site was redeveloped, there may not be a similar ongoing agreement. So to my mind, that shouldn't be something we consider. It's very difficult to tell exactly where the crossing is on this drawing because it doesn't seem to specifically be shown. But to my mind, it looks like these yellow lines are going to go further than the zigzags. Certainly you can currently park outside the chip shop without parking on the zigzags, and this would suggest you won't be able to anymore, I think. So I'm a bit concerned, but I don't know if other members have thoughts.
Councillor Russell.
Could I propose, please, that we accept both the Fairfield Road and the Shortmead Street ones, but object to the double yellow lines and leave the zigzags in place in Sun Street? I'd like to make that as a formal proposal, please.
Is there a seconder for that proposal? Okay, yeah, a few seconders. Further comments? Councillor Woodhead?
Sorry, just going back to the Sun Street issue. I think I also can't see where it is on here, but I'm almost certain there's a bus stop down there as well, which would also impact on obviously traffic and pulling in and all the rest of it. So it does seem a very strange choice to where to put these lines. And as Councillor Knight has said, it's not clear where the crossing is. There's obviously a lot of other, I wouldn't say clutter, but, you know, a lot of activity in that space. And it might actually make things worse by having the no waiting rather than better. But I think Councillor Russell's proposal probably covers all that anyway.
Thank you, Councillor Woodhead. Councillor Alban.
Yeah, the crossing is where the build out is that you can see between the two sets of lines.
That's what I thought.
Stops at 30B.
Okay. So we have a proposal to accept and to welcome the double yellow lines on Shortmead Street and Fairfield Road, but object to those proposed for Sun Street. Are there any last comments? No. So we're going to move to a vote then. So all those in favour of the proposal as set out, please show. Any against? Any abstentions? Thank you. So that is carried. Item 10B, lost and found child and vulnerable adult policy. That's a bit of a mouthful. I think we've seen this before, but this is a little bit more reflective of some of the comments that councillors had a couple of months ago when we last considered this. Isaac or Karim, do you want to speak to this?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. So as per the resolved action from Council on the 12th of July, officers have worked with Councillor Pullinger to finalise this policy. The bulk of the changes have taken place in the first paragraph of text, and further to this, and prior to any events taking place in the future, officers will conduct briefings with all staff involved to discuss all policies, risk assessments and such to make sure we're all up to speed, and this would include a refresher on the lost child policy. Thanks.
Thank you, Isaac. Comments and questions, please, councillors. Councillor Russell.
I'd just like to propose that we accept the policy as presented now.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that proposal? There's several seconders. Any further comments? No. Yeah, that's much smoother and easier than last time. Shall we see if it passes? So all those in favour of the proposal and the policy as set out, that is unanimous. Thank you for your work on this. Thank you for your efforts. I know the first draft came together in a very short space of time, and thank you for listening to councillors, particularly Councillor Pullinger, for helping to put this together as well. Item 10C is the Christmas offer procurement. This is a little bit tricky because we have some information which has been presented under the main agenda and other information which is in exempt, is presented under exempt. And the reason that it is presented under exempt is because of the volume of the volume of quotes that we've received and the extent to which they are anonymous, particularly between some of those suppliers, I guess. So I'd like to propose that we actually take this in exempt entirely so that we can have an open discussion about information which could be considered commercially sensitive. However, we will minute this with great detail to make sure that the instructions are clear. So are colleagues comfortable taking this under exempt? Is there any dissent? No. Okay, then we'll consider this under exempt. Item 11, planning applications. 11A, 2 Buttercup Mead, installation of a replica roof. No, sorry, I thought I'd missed something, I haven't. Installation of replica roof and new window frames to existing conservatory, which is at the rear of the property. Any comments? Are we moving no objection subject to neighbours? Is that okay? Item 11B, I'll wait for Councillor Bond to leave. Land to the north of Lindsell's level crossing. So just discharge of condition 3. This is against the planning permission for the bridle bridge going over the north of what is currently Lindsell's crossing, but ultimately that crossing will close if and when construction is sort of goes ahead. This discharge of condition relates to landscaping. Are there any comments? Councillor Russell.
I'd like to make some detailed comments with a view to asking council to object to this. So I'd first like to say that despite the challenges posed to the council, we've always been broadly supportive of the housing infrastructure programme and the investment that it's bringing to the town. This particular item is the discharge of the planning condition on landscaping for the bridle bridge. The bridge will be very intrusive. It's 41 feet high, which is high, and it will be far from in keeping with the surrounding rural landscape. There's the Biggleswade Common, which is the largest stretch of common land in Bedfordshire. There's the River Ivel and the bridleway across to the Sandhills and the RSPB, which is one of the few tourist attractions near the parish of Biggleswade. Understanding that Lindsell's level crossing is one of the most dangerous in the country and that its closure is paramount, council supported the initial planning application, but subject to, I quote, a strong recommendation for planning conditions around landscaping to minimise the visual impact. The council also asked to be consulted proactively about any planning conditions, a request which was honoured in the breach. In its decision notice from DMC, Central Bedfordshire Council notes that condition 3 is required to mitigate the visual impact on the surrounding rural area in line with sections 12 and 15 of the National Planning Policy Framework, quote, achieving well-designed places and, quote, conserving and enhancing the natural environment. The Town Council argues that the condition is also required to meet policy EE5 in the local plan, requiring that, and I quote, to safeguard intrinsic character, scenic beauty and perceptual qualities of the landscape, such as tranquility. All development proposals will need to have regard to the key characteristics and sensitivities of the site and its setting. The landscaping plan, which was on the table at the Development Management Committee in July 2021, when the application was approved, showed a tree belt over 30 feet wide, 110 trees encircling the bridge. Planning condition 3 also required larger trees to be planted than the normal and for irrigation to be put in place, and further for any trees which failed within 5 years to be replaced. This scheme was approved by the landscaping officer at the time and was a major reason why planning permission was given. Network Rail are now asking for condition 3 to be discharged based on a subsequent landscaping plan, which only shows a third of the original trees and has removed the need for irrigation which, given the terrain, is vital for newly planted trees to survive. Moreover, there's almost no planting remaining to the southeast. I think it's only a single tree. It's imperative that the bridge is properly screened on the southeast to protect the views of Biggleswade Common and the RSPB, and to retain the open view for the houses north of Potton Road. The proposal before us completely fails to satisfy this imperative. It would seem to me to be totally unethical to gain planning permission on the basis of one landscape plan and then substitute another inferior plan to get the planning condition discharged. Given the position of this bridge, its size and its proximity to such important open spaces, discharge of condition 3 as now proposed is flawed and does not meet the relevant local plan and national policies. Central Bedfordshire Council should be insisting on implementation of the landscaping plan as approved by Development Management Committee. The number of trees originally proposed are needed to properly screen the bridge, and the requirements to ensure that the trees are properly established and irrigated are vital. In view of the importance of these issues, I propose that the Council strongly object to the discharge of Planning Condition 3 on the revised plan and demand that Network Rail are obliged to implement the landscaping as per the plan approved at Development Management Committee in order to mitigate the visual impact of the bridge. That's the formal proposal, but I'd just like to say that I spoke at our last meeting about Network Rail's decision to remove the staircases from the new Access for All bridge at the station to save money. They're now trying to save money on this landscaping. It's really disappointing to see how Network Rail is shortchanging Biggleswade, and Central Bedfordshire must not allow it. I move the proposal, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Russell. Is there a seconder for that proposal? It's looking promising. Are there any comments? I have to say, I think that's a first. Councillor Brown.
I think that's beautifully summed up by the word it's unethical.
Thank you. Any further comments? No. Well, we're going to move to a vote. I'm on the edge of my seat. All those in favour of strongly objecting to the discharge of condition 3, please indicate. Thank you, that's everybody. And thank you for your work in putting all of that together, Councillor Russell. Could somebody invite Councillor Bond back in? Karen, would you be able to grab him, or Councillor Brown? Thank you. Welcome back, Councillor Bond. Item 11C, land at former scaffolding depot. So this is just off of Potton Road. Erection of 10 dwellings and the conversion of an existing building into 2 one-bedroom flats. Any comments, please? Councillor Russell.
I'm not terribly happy with the thought of 12 more residential units coming out at the bottom of the Potton Road Bridge. Particularly if we end up being landed with 400 odd from Hallam. I mean, the reasons, I would like to object to this for the reasons of traffic, for the same way that we've objected to Hallam. And coming out right at the foot of the bridge there by the shop is quite dangerous, I think.
I think the access is through Winston Crescent, if I'm not mistaken. But either way, it still follows the route round Winston Crescent, Pheasant Hall Road, Potton Road, which would be similar to the Hallam site. So I understand. So there's an objection to object on the grounds of transport. Okay. Is there a seconder for that proposal? Councillor Knight. Councillor Knight, did you wish to speak?
Yeah, thank you. So I do think we should object as well. So I have a number of concerns, and members will have to guide me on whether these are valid grounds. I'm concerned about the poor quality of accommodation due to the proximity of the railway line, and some of those properties look exceptionally close, even closer than some of the existing properties. And frankly, I don't think it's good to put people's homes that near the railway. I'm very worried about traffic and parking pressures. Some of the land that is currently used by nearby residents to park on which they may not own, so they may not have the right to park there, but it appears that the planning proposals are to turn those into dwellings, thus reducing the number of parking spaces for existing residents. And then, of course, you have to take into account the new properties. There are already frequent traffic jams on Potton Road, Rose Lane, Sun Street, Shortmead Road Junction, and it's interesting to look at the Highways Officer's pre-planning guidance. Now, I'm a bit confused because the pre-planning guidance is dated June 2019, but essentially the Highways pre-planning guidance essentially says that access arrangements are unacceptable because the proposal is to have a very tight access onto Winston Crescent. And if you take a look down there, you can't really imagine how a dozen dwellings could lead onto Winston Crescent safely in that area, and that's before you consider the impact on Furston Hall Road and Potton Road. So yeah, I think primarily we should object on the grounds of insufficient parking, impact on existing residents' parking, traffic, generation of traffic, highway safety, traffic generation, and the poor quality of accommodation due to the proximity of the railway.
Thank you. Councillor Russell, sorry, I'll come to you in a moment, Councillor Brown. So I think what Councillor Knight has seconded your proposal, but I think is wanting to add the impact on existing residents' parking and the proximity of some of these properties to the railway and presumably the noise pollution that would come with that. Are you comfortable with that as part of your proposal?
Of course, yeah.
Okay. Councillor Brown.
I agree with the development, and although I take on the concerns that you mentioned, I looked at it seriously. There's 21, I counted at least 17, but I'm told by a local resident who's looked at this, there's 21 parking spaces within the development. So it shouldn't have an effect on the locals. It is off the main Winston Crescent that they have to go into the establishment. The concern about the railway also, it wouldn't be the closest, there would be a house closer, but it's extremely close. And I think anyone moving in there would know that as soon as you saw it. But the development does have protective fence that is built to withstand the noise of the railway line. For what it's worth, I'm much further away and can't see how that would work as such, but at least they've got that. And at the moment, the place is derelict site. You can view it from walking over the bridge. I think it'd be a healthy development for that particular area. I think it would be a much pleasant view. There are residents who are complaining about what's happening outside the establishment at the moment because local youths are gathering there. So there are, for me, benefits of having a housing estate. Albeit small. My major concern was the traffic, but if I saw there would be some little development somewhere along there before the major development, which is one of the reasons I've objected to the main development in that area and still strongly against it. It's not what we want, but I think it's a small but healthy option. Thank you,
Councillor Brown. If the motion falls, then I'll look to you to put another proposal. But Councillor Russell, did you want to come back and just clarify some of the proposal?
Well, I think having conferred with my seconder that we would like to major on the traffic impact on Potton Road, but also the fact that it's overdevelopment. 12 dwellings there is far too much for what was one house and a yard. So I think it's the traffic, it's overdevelopment. I think we should add that it's very close to the railway and that there is an impact on parking. Yeah, and we should note that the Highways Officer has objected.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm getting some of this down. So, and you're comfortable with that seconding, I presume, Councillor Knight. Are there any further comments? No. So the proposal is to object to this planning application. Primarily on the grounds that there is considerable issues with traffic around the Winston Crescent, Furston Hall Road, Potton Road area, which this council has spoken at length about in the past, and this adds to those problems. There is concerns over loss of parking for residents whose properties are on Winston Crescent, whose parking spaces would be taken up by these properties. There are concerns over overdevelopment, with 10 or 12 properties in total being too many, and then also noise issues related to the railway line and the proximity of somebody's dwellings to the railway line. So that, I think, is the proposal. All those in favour of objecting on those grounds, please show. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Against? 1. And then I presume everybody else has abstained. Abstentions? Yes. Thank you. Okay. No, I know you don't. Thank you, Councillor Bond. So that is carried. So we object on those grounds that I've just laid that Councillor Russell has just laid out. Item 11D, 8 The Avenue. So first floor extension over an existing garage, 2-storey rear extension with a dual hipped roof, single-storey rear extension. Any comments? Councillor Brown?
I'm wondering if anyone can help me out in this, but looking at the development, it seems to be coming slightly forward. The avenue is difficult to park in, and there's only 3. It's taking away the garage, which I don't think is being used. So that isn't a concern, but there's 3 parking bays outside. I don't know if there'll still be 3 parking bays once that development takes place. I couldn't figure out, even though I spent a lot of time going over these plans, there is a slight moving forward into those parking bays.
Okay. Are you making a proposal then?
Well, I want to hear, has anyone got another?
Okay. Any further comments? Okay, no, that's fair. Thank you, Councillor Brown. Any comments either on that or other aspects, Councillor Woodhead?
Excuse me. My knowledge of the avenue is that it's not a fully adopted road, so I'm not quite sure how that works in terms of the parking, because it's not. Obviously, it doesn't. It's a cul-de-sac, but it isn't fully adopted. There's no road markings and things on there at the moment, so I'm not quite sure how the potential impacts of parking that Councillor Brown refers to genuinely impacts. I don't know. So whether that's something that could be taken in consideration. I'm also not clear what a dual hipped roof is as well. So if somebody could explain that, I don't know. But that was the only thing that concerned me. But otherwise, I don't have a problem. But it's just I know the avenue is a slightly unusual street in Biggleswade.
Thank you. Okay, I think we're looking for a proposal then. I mean, it would be possible not to object, subject to there being no loss of parking. Perhaps that's an option, but I'm not going to propose that from the chair. I'll wait for someone else to. So, Councillor Brown?
I'd like to propose that.
Ah, okay. Is there a seconder for that proposal? Yes, there is. Okay, any further comments? So the proposal is no objection, subject to no loss of parking on the driveway specifically, I think, isn't it? So although, and subject to neighbours and all of our usual wording as well. Thank you, Councillor Strawn. We mustn't forget that. All those in favour of that proposal, please show. Okay, that's carried. Item 12A, planning application outcomes. So this is a report on planning application outcomes as of 31st of July. Are there any comments on these? I have one from the chair, and that is that members will be pleased to hear that the planning application for the Red Lion has been refused, as far as I'm aware. So we were very much listened to. It's interesting that the officers at Central Beds objected on almost identical grounds to we did, which I think is a good outcome, or certainly based on what this council said when we considered the application. Are there any further comments on the planning application outcomes? Councillor Russell.
Simply to note, rather tongue-in-cheek, that the Hallam application was submitted on Christmas Eve 2019. We are now over 2.5 years later and nothing has been determined. So I think we've managed to put a slight problem in the path.
Good. Good. Yes, well, maybe, well, we won't count our chickens yet, but there's still a lot of hard work to do on that application, I'm sure. Who knows what will come up over the next few months. Thank you. So if there are no further comments on planning application outcomes, I will move on. So item 13, items for information. There are no items for information. Item 14, public open session. Everybody's out sunbathing, so couldn't make it. Is there anyone online, Karen? No? Okay, that's fine. If anybody is online and would like to speak, just show now. No, I asked them, that's fine. That's fine. Thank you, Karen. So public open session is done. Item 15, exempt items. So we have 2 exempt items to consider. Could somebody please move that we move into exempt session?
Move it, please.
Okay, thank you. Any dissent? No, then we go into exempt session. Thank you very much.